I so called it, guys. I so called it. I knew they were going to try to turn Trump's transition into some nefarious, crazy thing, and they're already starting to do it. Welcome back for another episode. Happy Tuesday morning to you guys. At least I think it's Tuesday. Yeah, I think so. Man, this last week and a half has just been absolutely crazy, and I am happy you guys came back for another episode. I got a lot of cover today. I want to talk about this. I called it last week. I'll play you the clip, but I knew they were going to try to turn this transition thing into something. Trump's doing something nefarious, and we found out what they were going to try to turn that into. Because some stories came out yesterday about it. Also, I want to talk about propaganda a little bit more. I've been really hammering on this, how the media has literally became a propaganda arm, and I want to touch on that a little bit more today, and what we can do as citizens to make sure that doesn't happen anymore. And then there's been some stuff going around the social spheres about this story about the FDA taking some certain decongestant cold and flu medications off the shelves, and how the Moderna CEO stepped down. And I'm going to give you some insight on that because it's going around the internet, and I'm going to give you the inside scoop. I'm going to get you to the truth so you guys can parse like what's reality and what's not. So we're going to talk about both of those today. But before I get into that, I've brought up the book several times, and I just kind of want to reiterate, why did I start doing the show? And I was thinking about this last night, and I was thinking about my kiddos, and I kind of had this epiphany that by the next presidential election, my kids will be 16 years old, and it's just crazy because they're 12 now, and I got to thinking about them and how it just life goes by so fast, but how fast they are growing up. And it reminded me of why I started doing the show, and why, because I run a real estate company. I'm a real estate investor here in Ohio. Some of you who've been watching from the beginning understand that. And life is busy. And, when you're an entrepreneur and you're running your company and you're trying to grow your company, and by no stretch of the imagination is my company like some large conglomerate, multi-million dollar a year company. Now, we do very well. We own millions of dollars in real estate. But it's busy, I guess, is the point that I'm getting at. It is very, very busy. And a lot of people have probably been, because a lot of you out there that started watching the show or started seeing the live feed pop up initially thought, well, what the hell is Justin doing? Like, why is he doing a show on politics all of a sudden? And I was thinking about this last night, and I just wanted to reiterate that the reason that I do this, and the reason that I started doing this, the reason I wrote the book, We the Puppets, which you haven't picked up a copy, make sure to go out and do so. You can do it on Amazon or go to my website, justinstaten.com. All right, there's my quick plug for that. But the reason that I started doing this is because, I have kids. And for the first time in my lifetime, 43 years, I noticed that we were going a direction in this country that wasn't even suitable to entrepreneurship. And I think oftentimes as entrepreneurs, we kind of get this sensation or this thought pattern that doesn't really matter who's in the White House. We're going to keep buying assets. We're going to keep, increasing our wealth. And regardless of who's in the White House or who gets elected to Congress, we are going, or who gets elected to local school board or city council, we're just going to keep doing our thing and keep increasing our wealth, and it won't really affect us. And in some regards, that's true. And I think most of my life, that was true, that it was kind of an irrelevancy who was in the White House, who got elected to Congress, because I was just going to keep accumulating assets and accumulating wealth, and it wasn't really going to affect me. And I think that's really changed over the last few years. I think it started changing somewhere around 2008, 2012. And it's been kind of going off the rails ever since. And it really was a wake-up call, seeing how far off the American dream we've gotten in this country, how far away our political elites have gotten from actually doing the will of the people and making sure that we actually have the ability to pursue life, liberty, and happiness and wealth. And for me, it came down to I thought we were going off the rails. I think we still are a little bit. I think the election of Trump is going to help reset things and get things back on track. But we were definitively going off a cliff. I mean, the dollar has, been printed almost into oblivion, where the only real true value of the dollar, what keeps it valuable, is our ability to create GDP. But then when you look at our GDP, it's increasingly more reliant upon debt and borrowing to spend the money to increase GDP, which is not a sustainable model for a genuine productivity in our economy and genuine growth. And when I started putting all this together, you got an elite class in DC that it spends more time doing their will and gaining wealth at the expense of the American people. But in that process, they're driving us off a cliff. And if they drive us off this cliff, then no amount of money made will make a difference, right? Because if we go off the cliff, we go off the cliff together. And so in a way, I felt like, my entrepreneurial endeavors were putting the cart before the horse. And if we don't pay attention to our civic duties, then you could be in a scenario where you could gain all the wealth in the world and watch, power brokers in DC run us off the cliff and lose it all. And then I thought about the kids, and it's like, if this happens, if we drive our economy off a cliff, if we drive our society off a cliff, if we end up in total conflict where we can't even unite around simple causes or simple policies, then we as a republic will fail. And how can I sit and just focus on building wealth and buying real estate and look my kids in the eyes, and if it ever happens, be able to look them in the eye and say, yeah, sorry, I got to experience freedom. I got to experience the ability to chase my dreams and chase the American dream, but I'm sorry, you can't. And knowing that I did nothing just didn't sit well with me. So that's why I started doing the show, because it's time in America, and we have to put the horse before the cart here. And it's time in America that we start doing that. Because if we are asleep at the wheel and we're constantly handing the keys to our car over to people who don't care about it, run it into the ground, beat it up, then we don't really have a future here in America. And all the money you make, all, the glory you're chasing really will become irrelevant very quickly. And if you have children, how do you look your kids in the eyes and say, yeah, I got to grow up in a free country where, chasing the American dream was not only encouraged, but that our political class, our representatives, the people we elected, paved the way for us to do that. And now, we don't have that, or your kids might not have that. And I just don't know how we could look at our children and say, yeah, sorry, we got all the benefits. Now you've got all the bills and you have to fix all these problems, because we were too busy chasing wealth and money. And I just don't feel like that's what's in the greater good of the next generation. And then we had this election, and Gen Z came out in big numbers and proved that they're willing to participate. They're willing to make sure that they hold our government in check. And that made me want to keep doing this. And so, maybe I don't often talk about it, and maybe it's weird for some of you guys who come to the show who know me and know that my passion has always been, in the entrepreneurial world and real estate. And I plan on staying in that world, and I plan on still accumulating assets. But I think we have to step back and make sure that the next generation, my kids, their kids' generation, also have the same abilities to chase that dream. And I think we just got really, really far away from it. So that's the reason why I do this. That's the reason why I wrote the book. And I just wanted to make sure that I reiterated that, because for me, I started even questioning, why am I doing this? I've spent a lot of time in trying to get better at, doing the show and producing the show and making sure that it's quality and something that people feel is worth watching. And I will continue at the expense of, going out and buying more real estate. But I am committed to continuing this, because I think right now, yes, Trump won, but I still don't think it's time to take our hands off the wheel. I don't think Trump is the magic bullet to fix everything that is wrong with Washington, D.C. And I think you're going to see that also over the next couple years here, that it's a good thing. I think it's the right track. We're going the right direction. But it's not the silver bullet. There is so much work to be done. We have had our hands off the wheel for far too long. And it is going to take every single one of us being active and paying attention. I'm not saying you got to do what I'm doing and put, your entrepreneurial endeavors on hold to help. But what I am saying is you need to pay attention. And it is my goal with this show is to help you pay attention so that you guys can keep rocking and rolling and buying, your real estate or whatever business you're in or entrepreneurial activities that you are in. And that's why I'm going to do this, because we need to stay engaged. And I will try to bring you the best stuff that I can every day so that you guys can stay engaged. So I encourage you, subscribe to the show. Leave me feedback. Tell me what you want more of so that you can stay engaged and so that I can help you stay engaged, because that is my commitment from this point forward, is staying engaged, keeping our eyes on the ball, holding these elected leaders accountable. And if they don't do the will of the people, we immediately have to vote them out in the next cycle. And that is the whole goal here. So I encourage you guys, tune in, follow. If you can't watch it live, that's okay. You can catch the episodes over on Apple or Spotify. Just make sure that you subscribe, and so you'll never miss an episode. And leave me your feedback so that I can bring you the information that you feel like you need to stay engaged and up to date on what's going on around the political spectrum. All right. That's it there. And if you haven't picked up a copy of the book, one more plug, please go do so over on Amazon.com, or you can go to my website, justinstaten.com. And if you want to get involved, in politics and holding the line, go over to my website and check out the Sons of Liberty, the Modern Sons of Liberty link on the home page. That is an initiative I am starting up so that we can get more people involved at the local levels. And it's a nonpartisan. It's just about liberty and making sure that our liberties, our civil liberties, stay intact. And that, because I don't subscribe to a political party. I don't think the Republican Party is the end all be all. And I think the Democrat Party is all but communist at this point. And I think they've both led us astray. So we, the American people, do need to be organized, but I don't think we need to necessarily do it in a political party. We can have movements and organizations that help push the plow locally. So if you're interested in something like that, go over to my website, justinstaten.com. Check out the Modern Sons of Liberty page there. And you can fill out a contact form, and say, hey, I'm interested, and I'll be in touch with you. But I want to get into this transition story. So I said this last week, and I'm going to play you the clip. So the volume may be a little loud, but here's what I said last week. Of course, technical difficulties. Hold on one second. I got it wrong. So bear with. Here we go. And he learned his. All right. So let me try this again. I am not technically. So from the very beginning in this last transition, they tried to set Trump up for failure. And he learned his lesson. He learned his lesson from the first time. So this time around, he's not even going to allow that to happen. And you're going to see news stories about this starting to come out probably next week, where they are going to hammer him and say that he's up to nefarious things because he refuses to utilize the government's transition services. And they're going to spin this as he is refusing to work with the Biden-Harris team to transition administrations. And they're going to spin that into something nefarious. I guarantee you it's coming. And really, it's because they're just going to try to black eye, give him a black eye, damage his reputation more and more. That's their whole playbook. And once you realize their playbook, it's really easy to predict their next move. So easy to predict their next move that they literally came out this week, just this week, and said, hey, Elizabeth Warren and CNN got together and said, oh, guys, guess what? Trump still hasn't signed his ethics agreements required under the Presidential Transition Act. It's just so predictable with these guys. Absolutely predictable. Let me show you this tweet here by Elizabeth Warren, who's really, she's such a disgraceful human. I mean, this is the same woman that said she was Native American, completely lied about it, right? And then she, in her tweet over on X, or whatever we're calling post on X anymore, are they tweet still? Are they X's? I don't know. But she says over on X, Donald Trump and his transition team are already breaking the law. I would know because I wrote the law, which is a stretch, and I'm going to explain that to you here in a second. Incoming presidents are required to prevent conflicts of interest and sign an ethics agreement. This is what illegal corruption looks like. So they're already at it. I called it last week. These guys are so predictable. Here's CNN article. Trump still hasn't signed the ethics agreement required for presidential transition. Like it's so predictable. It is absolutely predictable. So let me just give you guys the inside scoop on how this works. Okay. So the GSA, the General Service Administration, sets aside money and funding and resources to help each candidate, president-elect, transition into office. And to be fair, there is a lot to transition. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot of appointments to be made. He's got to fill the cabinet. He's got to staff his White House. They have to take over every executive department in the government. And so there is a lot of transition that needs to happen. But as I noted in that video before, the last time Trump did his transition, what did the outgoing administration do? The Obama administration. They spied on him. They tried to set him up. They set up, General Flynn. They tried to say that they were doing all this illegal and nefarious stuff, and they twisted the context of phone calls and conversations and all this stuff into, which is typical for transitions. The incoming president will have conversations with world leaders. They will reach out to people and talk about changes they want to make in departments and all this. And that is what Trump's transition was doing last time. But of course, the outgoing administration wanted to give him the black eye, wanted to try to damage his reputation day one. And so, they spun all this stuff to try to make it look like from day one, Trump was doing all these nefarious things. And they're already at it again, super predictable. And it's really rich coming from Senator Warren. But I'm just going to take you in. Here's the act. I've got it pulled up on the screen. And I'm just going to take you in to the amendments that were made in 2019. Right. So this act has been around, I think, since the 60s. Don't quote me on that. But then it was amended in 2019. And it's hilarious, just like Elizabeth Warren is saying, that it's absolutely hilarious that somebody who claimed they were Native American also is claiming they wrote the law, right? Which this act was originally enacted, I think, sometime in the 1960s. It was amended in 2019 in Congress. But of course, the woman who claims she was Native American and is not is trying to take credit for this. But I just want to point out, so here's the act. I'm over on Congress's website. And right here at the beginning of this amendment, it literally says, because what they're talking about, this ethics thing, is what has to happen is the GSA is responsible for creating a memorandum of understanding of all the resources the federal government will provide to the incoming president's transition team so that they can be successful in transition. So the Transition Act is really designed to give instruction to the federal government of what their responsibility is in not only providing resources, but help reimburse certain resources for the incoming president's transition team. It also creates requirements for the outgoing administration to have certain things in place for the incoming administration. The only requirement by the incoming administration is this memorandum of understanding that says, here's the resources we are requesting. That's it. And it says right here in this amendment, you can go and read it for yourself. And this is why, guys, it's so important to not be ignorant on the facts, because this is what the media will do. They will spin things out of control. But it says literally right here, and there are dates and deadlines. But before it even gets to the dates and deadlines, here's the language. It says, to the maximum extent practicable, enter into a memorandum of understanding with each eligible candidate, right? And then it goes down and it says the same thing in the next paragraph. To the maximum extent practicable. Why can I not say practicable? Jeez Louise. Why is that so hard for it? So, dude, there are days, and I don't know why, but there are certain days I can't say words. And today is one of those days. Oh my gosh. Practicable. Oh my God. I'm just going to stop because it sounds horrible. You can read it for yourself. So to the maximum extent that it is practicable to go in and do this, they got to do this memorandum of understanding of what the resources are that the federal government are going to provide to the transition team. I'm still laughing that I can't say that word right. Oh my gosh. Oh, you got to be able to say words, man, when you're doing a podcast. You got to be able to say words. So it's right there, right? It's right there in the act. Yes, there are deadlines. There's a September 1st deadline. There's an October deadline for some of these things. But it literally says in the first paragraph of this amendment in 2019 that if it's practicable, jeez, somebody help me out over here. Oh my God. I'm just going to come up. All right. We got to come up with a synonym here for this word because I cannot say it at all. It is embarrassing. Yeah. Let's. All right. Realistic. That's a great one. I just literally had to look up the synonym for whatever reason. I cannot get practicable. Oh wow. I got close that time. I cannot get that word out of my brain, like to come out of my mouth properly. And I know you guys have that problem too, but we're going to say realistic to the maximum extent that it's realistic to get into this memorandum of understanding. Please do so. It's giving and guys, this directive is directed at the GSA, not the incoming president. Now, in this same act, it does say that the incoming president and their administration has to set forth a standard of ethics for any conflict of interest they may have, right? And they said, we would like that to be done by October. But keep in mind, Trump has said from the beginning, we don't know how this is going to go. Even the whole media was saying, which I think it's ridiculous that in the act, they're saying you got to have all this stuff in by October. It's like, well, you don't even know if you're going to win until November. So I think you need to do some new amendments to this. Now, it is highly understandable why they're requiring the GSA to be ready to transition by October, because if the incumbent loses, you got to have a plan, right? And it is the whole act, and this is what you need to understand, is to give the federal government a mandate that you have to be ready to transition, right? It is up to you to transition. It's not up to the incoming president to facilitate and coordinate all the transition activities. That is what the act was designed for, right? So it puts the onus on the federal government, not the incoming administration. Now, they do have requirements once they get under this memorandum of understanding to say, hey, here's how we're going to avoid conflicts of interest with our appointees. Here's our go-to for transition, because there is non-public information that needs to be shared in the weeks and months to come prior to the Trump administration taking over. But to put out news articles like the CNN article that the headline, and then if you go in and read it, that the headline says Trump still hasn't signed ethics agreement required for presidential transition. The first couple paragraphs are how everybody's railing on him that, he hasn't signed this ethics agreement, but then it goes in to say, oh, but they're going to be woefully underprepared if they don't take over and don't do this transition and don't take all of our services, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because there's also a provision in this transition act that says the president can pay for their own transition. They can take campaign money and set up a brand new entity. And I think it's under they have to set up like a 504c entity or whatever. It's not a 501c3, but they can do that and actually use campaign money to pay for their own transition. And they don't have to actually take the government's money. And Trump, I don't know which way he's going to end up going with this, but has said we're going to pay for our own transition services. Why? Because he doesn't want to use the government facilities. He doesn't want to use all their stuff. He doesn't want to use their phones. Why? Because the last time he did this, they tried to set him up to look like he was doing nefarious things. And those were the headlines every week leading up to his inauguration. And then you got the PP tape hoax. And then you got the Russian collusion hoax, all proven to be garbage, false, and more false. So I don't blame him for not wanting to use some of these services. But I want you guys to not also be ignorant to the facts. I want you to go dive into them so that you can see the garbage. And I don't think I showed you that CNN headline. Yeah, here it is. Trump still hasn't signed ethics agreement required for presidential transition. It's a garbage article. And I called it. I called it last week. I told you they were going to do this. and they're doing it. They're so predictable. I can tell you as of right now, Trump is not doing anything nefarious, and this is why you can't be ignorant to the facts of how these things work, because they can spin anything into, oh my gosh, he's up to nefarious stuff, and they are going to do this at a fever pitch all the way up until inauguration and beyond. Okay, it's going to happen. Now, I will do my best to parse through the bull crap so that you guys know what's going on. So, speaking of parsing through the bullcrap, you guys have probably seen going around out there that the FDA has officially said they are going to, and here's the article from CNBC, that they propose ending the use of a decongestant found in many cold medicines. Excuse me, I had to clear my throat there. But it's basically, now, if I get this word right, guys, and I couldn't get the other word right, this is going to be crazy, but phenylephrine, which is a decongestant. Dude, it's just one of those days. It is just one of those days. Basically a decongestant. So you guys have seen this. It's been going around, but it's been getting a lot of coverage out on the social spheres, that combined with the fact that the Moderna CEO stepped down has prompted a lot of people out on social media to make this into a story. And I've got to be honest with you guys, right? Because if we're going to be honest about how the media spins their leftist narrative and propaganda for Trump, then we can't allow our side, or, people in the middle, or independents or conservatives, to spin other things. And we can't allow things online to just go unchecked, because then you guys aren't going to know any better, right? So the reality of this, and what they're tying this to, let me back up and give the context of what I've been seeing on social media. A lot of people are tying this to the fact that RFK has, the whole Make America Healthy Again, the whole MAHA movement, where he's going to come in and he's going to be responsible for something in the new administration that is health related. Now, we don't know for sure what, but it definitely looks like Trump is going to tap him for some position in the government where he will be responsible for trying to make America healthy again. And I'm all for that. Like, I think that's an amazing thing. I think he's going to do an amazing job. And I do think we need to work on getting certain chemicals and dyes out of our foods and regulating some of these medications a little bit better, not allowing them to advertise it on TV. I mean, I think prescription drugs advertisements are worse than freaking political campaign ads. I don't know, but I'm all for it. But people are tying all these changes to RFK, or Trump winning and RFK being tapped, that, these people are scrambling and trying to cover stuff up. And it's kind of like a misleading sentiment. And I'm not calling out anybody online that put this stuff out there, but here's the reality, that the FDA has actually been working on this, guys, for over a year. Over a year ago, March of 2023, they came out and said that they don't believe that this drug works. And the phenylephrine does not work. It's a decongestant. And if you go on and read the article, it talks about, it's in basically NyQuil, Benadryl, Sudafed, and Mucinex. And it's supposed to be a decongestant. It doesn't work, but they've known this for a year. So this wasn't, just to set the record straight, this wasn't something that just happened. They just officially announced, and the order is not final as of today, but they just officially announced that they finally come to a conclusion that, based off of evidence, that drug doesn't work. So the final order would remove any decongestants or any cold and flu medication that has it in there. It would be ordered to be removed from the shelves until new medication could hit the shelves that don't have that drug in it. But it has nothing to do with Trump winning. It has nothing to do with RFK taking over health in America. It literally has been going on for over a year. They've been looking into this, and they came out over a year ago and said, hey, we think this doesn't really work. We're going to do some more research, figure it out. And if we find that it doesn't work, we will remove it. And a lot of people have also been tying this to the announcement that Moderna's CEO is stepping down. But here's the thing, that is not 100% what is going on here. And I just want to make sure that we set the record straight. Because again, it matters. And when you see these things on social media, it's not that I believe people are trying to create misinformation or disinformation or whatever. I hate those words. I genuinely hate those words. I don't think anybody's intentionally trying to do that, but I think in their minds they're like connecting dots, like, oh, Trump won, RFK's coming in, the rats are jumping from the sinking ship kind of thing. And I've seen these two things tied together: the cold medicine coming off the shelves potentially, and this Moderna CEO stepping down. But here's the reality about this Moderna CEO stepping down. He's not actually stepping down. He will remain the CEO of Moderna. He's only stepping down from as the chief commercial officer, basically the guy that's responsible for sales within Moderna, right? He is still going to be the CEO of Moderna. He's just stepping away from the sales side of things. So, nothing nefarious there. He is, if this guy was like worried because they did a bunch of things wrong or thought he was going to get caught, he would step down completely. He's just stepping down from a role that he doesn't feel he's best suited for, and they're actually tapping a guy inside Moderna to take over that role. So I just wanted to make sure I cleared that up because I've seen it all over social media already. And that's the truth, is that the cold and flu thing, it's not a new revelation that just hit. And it, because it makes it look like it's so close to Trump and RFK winning, and that these announcements come out shortly after election day and everybody's like, oh, here we go. And it's like, no, there's no there. Like, I just got to be real with you and say there's no there. The FDA has been working on this drug and possibly removing it for over a year now. They just made, and they haven't even given the final order yet, but they are just now saying, yes, all the evidence is in. It doesn't work, so it shouldn't be in the medications that you're buying, the NyQuil and the Sudafed and the Mucinex. You shouldn't be buying it with that drug in it because it's ineffective. It doesn't work. So, but the final order has yet to come. It probably will come, but that's been a year in the making, over a year in the making. And the Moderna chief, he's not stepping down of the company. He's just getting rid of one of his duties in the company. He's still CEO. He's going to remain CEO. Not to mention, guys, if you think they would be jumping ship because of the COVID thing, keep in mind they got blanket immunity during COVID. So all the experimental things that were not 100, they were FDA temporary emergency order cleared, but they all got immunity. So they would have nothing to worry about anyway, even if it came out, which I'm not saying it has, even if it came out that none of the shots worked or were ineffective or dangerous, they got blanket immunity. Every single company did. So I don't think that would force somebody to step down. All right. So I just wanted to make sure I covered those two things. And the last thing I want to get into is this propaganda. Growing up, in the late 80s, 90s, it never really felt like, our media was propaganda. Like, and I want to really quick for the sake of this segment of the show, I'm pulling out my trusty Webster's Dictionary from 1977 because it's, there's been a lot of liberal changes to the definition of words over the last 15 years. But I kind of want to go over the definition of propaganda. And if you look it up, it says the spreading of ideas, information, or rumor for the purpose of helping or injuring an institution, a cause, or a person. Ideas, facts, or allegations spread deliberately to further one's cause or to damage an opposing cause. That's the definition of propaganda in the Webster's Dictionary, which is my handy dandy go-to for any time I'm like, man, I don't remember it meaning that. Like fascism and all the words that the left and the propaganda media like to use. I go there. I don't go to Wikipedia and all that because, some of the definitions have literally changed. And academia has had a big liberal, left-leaning academia has had a big hand in changing some of our definitions. So if you don't have a handy-dandy Webster's Dictionary, and I would go back at least pre-1990, grab yourself one because they're awesome. You should always have one so that you can remember. Because, going to school, I remember learning certain definitions of things. And then now I look at some of them online and I'm like, that's not what that means. Like, Who says that's what that means? And you just scratch your brain. You feel like you're living in a twilight zone. So I have my handy dandy Webster dictionary. But that's what propaganda means. And growing up, I don't remember our media spinning, things to, damage a candidate or a cause or whatever. And now it feels like they do it all the time. And I'm not the only one that's noticed it. I know you guys noticed it. And, there are people out there talking about this. And I came across this video from this lady over on TikTok. And, she was talking about the Smith Munn Modernization Act and how that was changed. And, I said at the top of the show that there is propaganda. I've been railing against it. It's happening. But what can we do? Why is it happening? That's question number one, right? Why is it happening? All right. Understanding it's happening is first step one. Why is it happening is step two. How can we prevent it from happening is step three. And I want to play this video for you because I think it's she kind of hits the nail on the head of what's going on. And again, to fight ignorance, we have to understand these things. So let me play this video for you guys here real quick. Yeah, so I'm going to leave it there. And this is what you guys need to understand. Going back to the ignorance, going back to the propaganda, and how so many people on the left right now have lost their collective minds because they were fed propaganda so much that it's almost like they're living in a simulation now, right? Like their simulated reality is that Trump is Hitler, right? That Trump is this demon, that he is going to be a dictator, that he is misogynistic and he's racist and he hates all these people. And what the media has done is it is basically psychological warfare and it is propaganda. And they have done it so much that they have created a simulation for the people on the left who really like eat, sleep, and breathe this stuff, that is their simulated reality. So they cannot figure out and connect the dots in their brain why so many people in America would vote for Trump, because we don't live in the same simulated reality that the media has created for them, because we don't partake in that media, right? We just ignore it. Now, a lot of us now go back and watch it, like me. We go and watch it to see what they're doing and what they're saying and the propaganda that they're spewing now, because it's important for us to see the lies that they're trying to spread so we can debunk them thoroughly, like we always do. But this brings up a larger point, and I appreciate the video there. And let me give you guys her handle real quick. It is I think too coincidental or something. Too much coincidence. Too much coincidence over on TikTok. Give her a follow. That I love the video, love the insight. She's got a lot of other good videos over there too. But the thing that you need to understand is that there was a time in America where this type of propaganda and propagandizing was not legal. And what you have to understand now is it is. So it doesn't matter what source you're getting your information from, to include me. Now, my commitment to you guys is I don't get paid by any party. I don't support any party, so why would they pay me? I don't get paid to say this. I don't make any money off of this, doing this show. I hope to change that, by the way. But as of right now, I make zero money off of doing this show. So I don't get paid for it. But you guys need to question everything. It doesn't matter the source of the information. But if it is specifically coming out of the mainstream media and the legacy media, the CIA has been caught in the past, doing this stuff and having plants in the media. It is fact. This is not conspiracy theory. It's declassified. It happened. So in 2012, when they updated this and amended this and made it legal, there is a possibility that the CIA went back to bad habits. That's all I'm saying. So you should question everything. You should especially question the stuff that you see as clear propaganda. That's why I rail so hard against MSNBC and CNN and even some of the media or the legacy media like NBC, CBS, and ABC, because they are clear propagandists. The information is so skewed. It's so taken out of context, just like the CNN article I shared with you guys at the top of the show about this transition stuff. So completely out of context that they're like, oh, Trump is up to nefarious things because he won't sign the ethics standards or whatever. And you just go in and read the act and you're like, oh, okay. They're trying to spin this in a nefarious tone. And they are. Trump is not doing anything nefarious. Like, he's trying to get his ducks in a row. He doesn't trust the outgoing administration. And why should he? Because it's just an extension of the Obama administration, who did nefarious things. They spied on his campaign. They bugged their phones. Like, they set up General Flynn to over stuff that, like, he wasn't doing wrong. And Trump's like, yeah, we're not going to do that again. We're not going to make we can't trust these people. I mean, look at the way they talked about him for the last several months, the last 4 years. They tried to kill him. And I think all the evidence on that's going to come out too. Now, I can't say that the government was involved, but their rhetoric damn near killed him. I can say that at a bare minimum, that their rhetoric damn near killed him. Because when you propagandize somebody as Hitler, it's Mussolini, he's going to be a dictator, he's all these bad things, and you create that reality, that simulated reality for people who buy into it, they're going to think he's a genuine threat to democracy. And they're still to this day saying he's a threat to democracy. And it's all propaganda. So I only bring the Smith-Munn Act up just so that you guys know there was a time in America where it was not allowed. And then there became a time in America where it is allowed for your government to propagandize you and lie to you and spread even misinformation and disinformation, their favorite words, to fool you and to get from you what they want. This is why you'll see certain media outlets who I think are compromised say over and over again, oh, we need to regulate social media. We need to regulate social media. Guys, anybody who wants to be the power brokers over information can't be trusted. Like, that is why the First Amendment exists in the first place, so that there is no power broker on information or freedom of speech, because information is freedom of speech. And if your government wants to have the monopoly on information, what is true and what is not, you should be worried. Like, it should scare the shit out of you that they're like, oh, no, yeah, we should regulate this stuff. We should have the monopoly on what's true and what's not. It's crazy that people out there actually think it would be a good thing to give the government the monopoly on information. It's insane. But I just want you to know that there was a time in America where it wasn't okay to propagandize Americans. That was only allowed overseas. Then there became a time in America where it is okay and it is legal for them to do it. So from that point forward, roughly circa 2012, you guys should be suspicious of everything you see, everything you hear, right? You should have a healthy skepticism. You should question everything. As a general rule, I teach my children that. Question everything. You don't have to be disrespectful in your questioning of everything. And I teach my kids, always be respectful, always be kind, but you should question everything, every narrative, everything you're taught, because it's in that, inquisitiveness that you will become intelligent. It's in that inquisitiveness that you will not stumble or be led astray or be fooled. And I say the same thing to you guys. Question everything. if you don't, then you're putting, your knowledge and what you know in the hands of somebody else. And that, in my opinion, is dangerous. So don't do it. Question everything. There's a lot of propaganda going on out there. It's going to get worse. It will be at a fever pitch. And I'm going to try to parse through it for you guys. I am going to try to stay on top of it to make sure that you guys, and again, don't just rely on me. I mean, I'm not a propaganda puppet. I don't support a political party. I'm not in legacy media. I don't even have advertisers on the show. So there is quite literally, I do the show for free out of my own pocket. And so you can trust me. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I have no vested interest. My whole goal is to make sure the people get the power back that is rightfully theirs. So question everything, question the narratives. All right. As a quick reminder, guys, I'm going to leave it there. If you haven't picked up a copy of the book, We the Puppets, the audience for the best illusion ever performed, which kind of goes into some of this stuff. It doesn't necessarily go into the Smith-Mund Act, but it goes into some of these systems that we hold dear in this country and why maybe you should look differently at them moving forward. Really good read. The feedback has been amazing. So go to Amazon, pick up your copy, or you can go over to justinstaten.com and get a signed copy from me. I'll even write you a little note. It's pretty cool. I would appreciate it. If you guys are listening to this over on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, do me a favor and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Leave a rating and review, again, so that I know how to make the show better for you, to help you guys stay informed, to help you guys parse through all the bull crap and the propaganda that exists out there today. It would mean the world to me, but I'm going to leave it there, guys. But until next time, stay informed. You're probably starting to figure out why I say stay informed now all the time. Maybe, just maybe. Stay informed, guys. Stay strong. But most importantly, stay in the fight. All right, guys. Love you. And